Welcome to this lecture series on environment and ecology presented by Mentors for IS in association with Bangalore IS Academy and Namak APSC. So, before we move on ahead, I would just like to inform that this is an initiative of Namak APSC to help students to prepare and study from home with the help of YouTube videos, current affairs available on the website, PDF materials for every subject, and online tests to track your preparation. So do remember to visit www.namakapsc.com for more information. So continuing with today's session, we'll be discussing about corals. That is the last leg of our aquatic ecosystems. So with this particular video, we'll be completing our discussion about aquatic ecosystems. Okay. Now, when it comes to corals, please remember tropical areas actually have many marine creatures such as coral polyps, calcareous algae, shell forming creatures, and lime secreting plants which live in large colonies. Their ability to form calcium carbonate gives rise to a marine landform of various shapes, color, and forms. So this is nothing but corals, and when many corals come together, that is when you have coral reef. Now, these coral polyps are nothing but tiny living creatures. So, a coral is nothing but a living animal which has a symbiotic relationship with a microscopic algae living inside the coral known as zooxanthellae. You can just make a note of it, known as zooxanthellae. So this coral lives in a symbiotic relationship with a microscopic algae known as zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae assists the coral in nutrient production through its photosynthetic activities. These activities provide the coral with fixed carbon compounds necessary for energy, enhanced calcification, and also mediate elemental nutrient flux. The tissues of corals themselves are actually not beautiful in color, or as you see these coral reefs, or as you would have seen in the internet or on TV, that they are very vibrant in color. But this color is actually due to the pigmentation which is offered by zooxanthellae. So the corals receive their coloration from the zooxanthellae living within their tissues. The host coral polyp in return provides its zooxanthellae with a protected environment to live within and a steady supply of carbon dioxide for its photosynthetic process. So simply put, the coral polyps will offer the zooxanthellae a residence. In turn, these zooxanthellae will prepare food for the coral, and therefore they are able to live happily ever after. So here you can just make a note, there are two types of corals. You have hard corals and you have soft corals. The coral reefs that we talk about, these are always nothing but hard corals and not soft corals. So only hard corals actually build reefs. Okay, so the builders of coral reefs are tiny animals called polyps. As these polyps thrive, grow, and then die, they leave their limestone, that is nothing but calcium carbonate skeletons, behind. The limestone is then colonized by new polyps. Therefore, a coral reef is actually built up of layers of these skeletons covered ultimately by living polyps. I'm just going to repeat it. So these coral polyps are tiny creatures living inside the coral cups which help in building of coral reefs. When they die, their skeletons get cemented to the reef, and this is how the coral reef builds itself. The reef building or the hermatypic corals can form a wide range of shapes. Therefore, the coral reefs may be branched, it may be table-like, or look like massive cups, boulders, or knobs, and hence they are of different shapes, colors, and size. Okay. Now, next, I did mention that they actually live in a symbiotic relationship. Now, these coral reefs are one of the most productive and complex coastal ecosystems with very high biological diversity. The high productivity is owing to the combination of its primary production and support from its surrounding habitat. The corals are generally slow growing colonies of animals, while zooxanthellae are fast growing plants. So, in this particular image over here, you should be able to see the photosynthetic uh, relationship between corals and their zooxanthellae, and also the life cycle of the coral polyps. So this is how a coral polyp grows and helps in the building up of the coral reef. Next, moving on to the conditions which are actually required for coral reefs. Now, the water temperature must not drop below 20 degrees Celsius. Therefore, coral reefs are always restricted to tropical and subtropical regions. That is why whenever you go higher up in the latitudes in colder regions, you do not find coral reefs. Coral reefs are always found closer to the equator in the tropical and subtropical regions, because if the temperature drops below 20 degrees Celsius during winter or due to climatic changes, then it is not ideal for the growth of these coral polyps. They also do not survive where cold currents exist, which may have a cascading effect on warm water. Hence, this is the reason why coral reefs are not found on the western side of continents and are only found on the eastern side of continents. This you will be able to better appreciate when geography is covered, when a particular topic known as ocean currents in geography is covered. Here you can just make a note that coral reefs are not found on the western side of continents but only on the eastern side of continents. They thrive where warm currents are found, such as your Gulf Stream. As I mentioned, you'll be able to better appreciate when this ocean currents are covered. But you can just make a note of it that they thrive where you have warm currents, such as the Gulf Stream, which is found on the eastern side of North America. The other ideal condition which is necessary is that the depth of the water should not be more than 180 feet, which would reduce the availability of sunlight for photosynthesis required by microscopic algae on which the coral polyps depend. So you do not have coral reefs in very deep waters, you only have it in shallow waters. Neither should it be exposed to the atmosphere for considerable period of time. It should always be present submerged in shallow waters. Apart from that, the water must be saline and free of sediments. Therefore, coral reefs are not found near river mouths. They are not found where you have big rivers discharging their water with lot of sediments into the oceans or seas. So they are found far away from the river mouths. Also, these corals grow rapidly in the direction from which the waves, tides, or currents come. That is, these corals grow seawards. This is because these waves or tides will bring in oxygenated water with fresh food, which is actually required for zooxanthellae for photosynthesis, which will also require nutrients. Okay. So next, we'll just briefly discuss about the functions of coral reefs. Now, coral reefs are natural protective barriers against erosion and storm surge. Coral animals are highly adapted for capturing plankton from the water, thereby capturing nutrients. They are also the largest biogenic calcium carbonate producer. They provide substrate for mangroves, and coral reefs provide habitat for a large variety of animals and plants, including avifauna. Now, you do also have different structures of corals. For example, you have fringing reefs. Fringing reefs actually moves on or evolves. You could say that it actually evolves into a barrier reef, and from a barrier reef, it moves on to an atoll. Now, this evolution of fringing reefs to barrier reefs to atolls, once again, it is best if it is actually discussed along with islands, the way different islands are formed in geography. However, once again, you can just make a note of it. You have fringing reefs become barrier reefs, and finally barrier reefs become atolls. Atolls help in the formation of islands. For example, Lakshadweep, we have several atolls. Most of the islands in Lakshadweep are nothing but atolls. I'm not saying all the islands are atolls, but you do have most of the islands form nothing but due to atolls. Next, we have a very important phenomenon which is actually taking place. It is known as coral bleaching. So you can see the two contrasting images over here. So on the left hand side, this is healthy condition, and on the right hand side, it is nothing but known as coral bleaching, when the corals actually turn entirely white, and this phenomena is known as coral bleaching. So the bleaching or the paling of coral color actually occurs when the density of zooxanthellae decline, or the concentration of photosynthetic pigments within the zooxanthellae actually fall. I did mention earlier, the corals, they themselves do not have this vibrant color. This vibrant color is due to the presence of zooxanthellae, and the coloration is nothing but due to their pigmentation. So if the corals actually lose the zooxanthellae for any particular reason, they will also lose this pigmentation and therefore the color as well. So this process of corals turning white is nothing but a process where they lose their zooxanthellae for various reasons. This is known as coral bleaching. So when corals bleach, they commonly lose 60 to 90% of their zooxanthellae, and each zooxanthellae may lose 50 to 80% of its photosynthetic pigments. If the stress causing bleaching is not too severe and if it decreases in time, the affected corals usually regain their symbiotic algae within several weeks or a few months. If zooxanthellae loss is prolonged, that is, if the stress continues and depleted zooxanthellae populations do not recover, then the coral host eventually dies. High temperature and irradiance stressors have been implicated in the disruption of enzyme systems in zooxanthellae. So photosynthesis pathways, photosynthetic activity in zooxanthellae are actually impaired at temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius. So there could be several reasons as to why coral bleaching takes place. We will just quickly discuss some of the important reasons which causes coral bleaching. So what are some of the reasons of coral bleaching? Okay, so first is temperature. Temperature is a major cause. I did mention that for ideal conditions, the temperature should not be too low. Also, the temperature should not be very high. These coral species actually live within a relatively narrow temperature margin, and anomalously low and high sea temperatures can induce coral bleaching. So bleaching is much more frequently reported from elevated sea water temperature and also due to sudden drop in temperature. So if there's a sudden drop in temperature or sudden increase in temperature, you can have coral bleaching. On top of this, due to global warming, there is a substantial increase in water temperatures, especially in tropical regions, which is also leading to coral bleaching. So human activities, this is also leading to coral bleaching. Next, solar irradiance. Bleaching during the summer months, during seasonal temperature and irradiance is maximum and often occurs disproportionately in shallow living corals and on the exposed summits of colonies. So when the sun is shining over the equator, obviously you'll have maximum solar irradiance which is actually received, and if the sun is directly overhead, then obviously a lot of sunlight is received, and this sunlight may also, this increased irradiance or radiation might also increase the temperature and can also result in coral bleaching, because these zooxanthellae are very sensitive to their surrounding environment and the conditions which are required for their survival. Next, we'll take up subaerial exposure. Now, next is subaerial exposure. Sudden exposure of these coral reefs to the atmosphere during events such as extreme low tides or your ENSO, that is your phenomena associated with your El Nino, that is your southern oscillation, related sea related activities or tectonic upliftment. This can also result in coral bleaching, meaning if the corals are exposed outside water for a considerable period of time, this can also result in coral bleaching because it has to be submerged under water. Next, we can take up sedimentation. Now, I did mention that corals are not found where you have big mouths of rivers discharging water because they carry a lot of sediments. So, there are very few instances of coral bleaching having been linked solely to sediments, but it is also possible that heavy loading by sediments can also result in the loss of zooxanthellae, resulting in coral bleaching. Next, we take up freshwater dilution. Rapid dilution of reef waters from storm generated precipitation and runoff has been demonstrated to cause coral reef bleaching. Generally, such bleaching events are rare and confined to relatively small nearshore areas. Then we have inorganic nutrients. Now, rather than causing coral bleaching, an increase in elemental nutrient concentration can result in eutrophication. This eutrophication in turn may result in coral bleaching because obviously, whenever you have eutrophication, the penetration of sunlight into waters is cut off and reduced. So if this continues for a very long time, very unlikely that it is going to result in permanent bleaching, but can result in temporary bleaching, at least due to eutrophication. Finally, we take up epizootics. Epizootics, nothing but disease when it comes to your corals. So most coral diseases may result in patchy or whole colony death, and when this happens, this is nothing but loss of zooxanthellae as well and exposure of white skeleton in your aquatic ecosystem. So diseases may also result in coral bleaching. Apart from that, obviously you have pollution, that is due to human made activities. When the water quality drops, or when the pH level of the water changes, and if the water becomes very acidic, this can also affect corals and may also result in coral bleaching. So the conditions or the causes of coral bleaching are not restricted to this, but these are the main causes for coral bleaching because they are very sensitive, and once lost, it will take a lot of time to recover. So if you've understood whatever we have discussed about corals, you should be able to answer these questions. So the question says, consider the statements regarding coral bleaching. Now, it is the loss of zooxanthellae through either expulsion or loss of algal pigmentation. Yes, it is true. Second, it happens only due to increase in ocean temperature. No. First of all, it can happen also due to drop in temperature, and obviously there are several other reasons which can cause in coral bleaching. Third, all the corals undergoing bleaching are dead corals. No, they may be undergoing coral bleaching, but if the conditions are reversed, they might recover. So it is not necessary that if they are getting bleached, they actually die. So 2 is actually incorrect. 2 is actually incorrect. Sorry, I've actually mentioned the incorrect option over here. So the correct statements, sorry, my mistake. Only the first statement is correct. Yes, the second statement and the third statement are incorrect, whereas the first statement is correct, and hence it is C, only 1. Okay, next question. Which of the following have coral reefs? Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Gulf of Kutch, Gulf of Mannar, and Sundarbans. See, obviously at Sundarbans you're not going to have coral reefs because you have large rivers, Ganga, Brahmaputra, discharging its water along Sundarbans. That is where you have mangroves. You also have a lot of sedimentation. Obviously, it is not going to support uh, corals. So the option that you have left is nothing but Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Gulf of Kutch, and Gulf of Mannar. Now you have coral reefs along all these regions. So it is actually 1, 2, and 3. So answer is A. So thank you for watching. If you do have any doubts, please write to us in the comment section and do follow us for further such videos.